Hello there. Hi, good day, good afternoon, good morning. Depending with where you are watching this from, in your part of the world, time different things. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this live stream, and welcome. I truly appreciate your support, and I appreciate you tuning in because I know for a fact that there are a million other things you could have been doing, but you all chose to be with me in this moment, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So, first things first, if you can hear me and see me clearly, please let me know in the comment section before we kickstart this session. Just let me know in the comments if the sound and the picture quality is okay so I can see if there is any adjustment that I need to do. I see we have a couple of people who are already online and watching. Please let me know if you are getting me loud and clear. That would be very, very helpful. Or also, if you can, please share this live stream with your friends, with your connections on Facebook, on Twitter, on wherever you can share it. Please do share on your WhatsApp contacts. If you think you might know someone who might benefit from tuning into this live stream, please do invite them to come in and watch. I am going to be talking about disability assumptions and misconceptions that a lot of people have. I know that disability is a widely misunderstood topic, and a lot of people just don't understand about disability as much as they should. So, if you know someone who you think could benefit, please do share or via your social network platforms. I would really, really appreciate that. Yeah, and also please do like this video. Please like it so that YouTube can help in terms of spreading it to more people. The more you engage with the content, the better it will be for the live broadcasts. And now that we've got those in-house issues out of the way, let me get into today's business. Now, just to sort of like give you a brief background about where I am coming from, my name is Aaron Shu. I am a Zimbabwean. I am born and bred in Zimbabwe, and I sustained a spinal cord injury at birth. While my mom was giving birth to me, there was an accident that happened, and this accident resulted in a spinal cord injury. And when this accident happened, um, there really wasn't too much hope for me. My parents were told that I wouldn't live past the age of 5, that my life I would not have any cognitive senses at all, that the only thing that I would be able to do is lie in bed, and that I wouldn't be able to speak, I wouldn't be able to engage, interact with people on any level whatsoever, and that I wouldn't live to be past the age of 5. But obviously, you can tell that I am way beyond 5 years old. I am doing well, I'm alive, I'm thriving, and I'm grateful to God for that. So, anyway, the point why I am saying this is so that you know that I have had my disability my entire life. I have never known anything else. I have never been able bodied for any day, any second, any minute, any hour. All I have known from the moment I was born is disability. And because I've lived through disability, I've lived with a disability my entire life, I've encountered a lot of stereotyping, a lot of discrimination, a lot of stigma, misconceptions, that kind of thing that people associate with disability. So I thought I would just come on here and share with you a little bit about that. So, first things first, the reason why I felt like talking about common myths and misconceptions, the facts rather about disability is because uh, these misconceptions are common. They are way too common than they should be. A lot of people have so much wrong information about disabilities, and if these misconceptions and stereotypes go unchecked, the people who have disabilities continue to be on the receiving end of the mistreatment, misjudgment that comes with a lack of understanding about disabilities. These incorrect assumptions, I understand that they come from a place of fear, a place of misunderstanding, a place of prejudice. So, uh, if we continue to promote a negative image of disability, then we are doing people who have disabilities uh, miss, a gross wrong. Sorry, my English bundles tend to be depleted sometimes. But anyway, we are just going to power through this assumption. So, anyway, here goes. Assumption number one: people think that a person's disability defines who they are as an individual. Let me tell you, this could not be any further from the truth. Nobody is ever defined by their disability, and they shouldn't be. But you would be surprised by how common this is actually. People will refer to someone who has a disability, like the blind guy, the crippled girl, the handicapped man, the, I don't know, all sorts of things and name calling. You will see it happening when it comes to people who have disability. And the message that this spreads is that people rarely see beyond your disability, and they think your disability is everything about you, but that is just not the case. I remember I saw a meme a few weeks ago, and this meme was about a guy who was an able bodied man who was having a conversation with someone who was in a wheelchair, and he was asking him, like, so, do you want me to call you handicapped or crippled, disabled, or what? And the response from the guy in the wheelchair was, "You can call me Ben." And I'm like, wow, I have seen this so many times. People will act like you don't have a name, and they'll put your disability as the thing that defines you. But that really, really should not be the case at all. Um, in case you are wondering what I'm looking at, I've made a few notes so that I don't forget any of the important points. So if I keep on checking my laptop, please just understand what is going on. So let's move on to the next assumption that people have about people with disabilities. And I know that a lot of people are probably guilty of this one, including myself. I used to be guilty of this assumption as well. And this is to assume that all people with disabilities use wheelchairs. I know. Let me know in the comment section, when you think about people who have disabilities or people who are disabled, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? It's probably a wheelchair, right? I know. Let me know in the comment section. You probably think of a wheelchair first, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe you don't. But I can certainly assure you that a lot of people think this way. That the majority of people who have disabilities are wheelchair users. And I think it mainly comes from the fact that the wheelchair has somewhat become synonymous with disability. Is the symbol that is used to represent disability parking, or just to, symbolize disability in general. But the actual truth of the matter is that only 8% of the entire disabled population are wheelchair users. The rest are not. I feel like something else that also fits into this assumption is that um, most people think and feel like all disabilities are visible, are physical, and are obvious. But that's not really the case. There are also invisible disabilities. And so you really never know. Sometimes you may look at someone and think, oh, I know, I can tell if this person has a disability or not. But sometimes disabilities are invisible and are not so obvious, or physical even. So it's definitely a very huge misconception that disabled people are mostly wheelchair users. And the problem with this misconception is that it marginalizes other people with disabilities who are not wheelchair users. We are talking of people who have other disabilities like visual or auditory impairments. They are neglected, and they are not often thought of as much as their wheelchair using counterparts are thought of. Like, for example, you would find that someone can be denied a certain right because they don't look disabled. And by look, I mean in open and close quotes, because disability doesn't have a look in general. And you would find that simply because someone's disability is not that visible, they are denied their rights. People are like, no, you are not disabled, get out of this queue. Or maybe you want to use the disability parking space, and somebody, just because you are not using a wheelchair, they're like, no, you can't use this. So that's the problem with making that assumption that most people who are disabled are wheelchair users. It's really, really not the case. um okay. Whew. I hope you are still connected. I can see we have some people watching. Thank you, thank you. Let's continue with on to the third misconception. You guys also, just allow me to say, feel free to comment. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you would like me to explain something a little bit further, let me know and I will do that. Just let me know, just mention it in the comment section, and I will explain on anything that you may have misunderstood, or that you could have failed to make sense of as I am explaining it. Moving on to the third assumption and misconception. This one is like the biggest of them all. And this assumption is that a lot of people assume and think that disabled people are not interested in, or are incapable of having romantic relationships. Let me tell you, you couldn't be any further from the truth. I would say it's probably the most common misconception that is floating out there, that people with disabilities are perpetual babies, that we don't develop like any other adult does develop, that we never develop feelings or desire for intimacy, for relationships, for marriage, for partnerships. And I'm not just talking of friendships or stuff like that, I'm talking about sexual relationships. People, most people think that people with disabilities are not interested in having sexual, intimate relationships, and that is just wrong on so many levels. The biggest problem with this assumption is that it often leads to an exclusion. It often leads to the exclusion of people with disabilities from sexual reproductive health and resources, because people just assume that, oh, if someone has a disability, they'll probably be like a perpetual baby forever. They are not interested in sexual relationships, they are not interested in getting married, they are not interested in starting a family. So because of that, they are never given the opportunity to gain access to resources that will teach them more about sexual reproductive health. And it becomes a tragedy, because what happens at the end of the day is that when people are ill informed or misinformed or underinformed, they then get into scenarios and situations that could have been otherwise avoided if anyone, if everyone, in fact, had ensured that people with disabilities are also getting information relating to sexual health and reproductive health. And let me see, have I forgotten to mention anything? Yes, while we are on that note as well, I also want to point out that there are a lot of people who feel like if you are disabled, you can't get married. No, you absolutely can. I know a lot of interabled couples, they call them interabled couples, where one partner is able bodied and the other one has a disability or an impairment. They are called interabled couples. And you know what? They are not only interabled couples, they are also marriages or partnerships or relationships between um, partners who both have a disability or an impairment. Another huge misconception that people have is that people who have disabilities should only date other people with disabilities. Like, if you have visual impairment, you should also date someone who is visually impaired. And I have even witnessed some people making some kind of funny comments in with regards to this line of thoughts. Like, even someone I thought was a friend at some point, we saw a girl who was in a wheelchair, and all my friends are like, "Oh man, talk to her, talk to her," and I'm like, "Why?" Like, dude, like, look at her, she's pretty, she is. And I'm like, and why are you doing that right now? Because normally you don't do this kind of thing. You never try to push me onto anyone simply because they have a disability. So please let it be known that people with disabilities should be free to have relationships with or to date anybody that they want to date who also wants to date them, regardless of whether they are disabled or they don't have a disability themselves. Oh man. Okay, okay, okay. You guys, come on. Let me know if you are benefiting anything. I see that some of you are online. Yes, Levi Mbelego, man, what's up? How are you? Thank you for joining in. Much appreciated, bro. You guys, if you also have any questions, let me know. Let me know. So that we stay on track together as we move on to the next assumption. Another huge assumption that people have is that people with disabilities cannot be independent and that we always rely 100% on other people. That is absolutely wrong. Let me tell you, yes, in some cases, people with disabilities will require the assistance and the support of a family, of friends, of caregivers. But it should never be taken for granted that every person in the world who has a disability also requires that kind of assistance from caregivers. There are a lot of people with disabilities who are completely independent and are very much capable of taking care of themselves, not just themselves, but even of their families as well. People with disabilities are not always are not always dependent on other people, and we don't always require large amounts of caregiving. You see that some people actually shy away from befriending you or being in a relationship with you because the assumption is that, oh man, I'm gonna have to take care of this person. But I'll say if you have any concerns along that department, the best thing you can do is to engage in an open conversation with the one who has the impairment or the disability and ask them about what kind of support or assistance they need from you, or if they need it from you. And you'll be very surprised to actually realize that for a lot of us with disabilities, we have found ways to um, what's the word I'm looking for? We have found ways to adapt, yes, to adapt to our disabilities and find different ways of doing things. Like for instance, I may not be able to, let me just take care of something. I may not be able to do things the same way that everybody else does things, but that doesn't mean that I am not capable of doing those things by myself in a way that is comfortable to me. Um, I may do things differently, but at the end of the day, I'll get that thing done. You'll find that we are very good at adapting, and we are very good at molding ourselves to the situation and adapting and making the necessary changes to make our lives as comfortable as possible. Making an assumption that people with disabilities always need to be taken care of can often lead to very awkward and uncomfortable situations. For example, you find out that if you go out with a friend or a couple of friends or a caregiver or anyone really as your companion, most people will avoid talking to you directly and ask your caregiver or your companion about things relating to you. If I had to get a penny for every time that somebody skipped over talking to me to have a conversation with the other person that I was with, I tell you, I would be filthy rich. I would be rich. Because people naturally assume that the moment they see that you have a disability, that you are not independent, either in terms of taking care of yourself or even fully representing yourself. So that's the reason why people are more inclined to asking other people about you. Like they'll say, "Oh, so what does your friend want? What can I get your friend? Does your friend want dessert? What kind of dessert should I get for him?" And the best way to respond to that, I mean, if you are someone who has a disability, I usually just say, you can ask me, um, or I will respond myself and show them that I can speak for myself and I can represent myself, but I understand how frustrating this can be. So that assumption really, really needs to be rid of. The next assumption is a pretty common one, at least in my experience. And this assumption is that life with a disability isn't normal. For some reason, a lot of people think that just because you have a disability, your life is very different from the rest of the world. And contrary to popular belief, our lives are really not that different. Our lives are as regular, as normal, as common as anybody else's. The lives of people with disabilities, really, there is nothing that is that dramatic. Like the way people think and assume, like, oh man, things must be so different. I'm sure there are special things that they have to do. Maybe they are always in the hospital, or their houses full of gloom and doom, and it's unending hospital visits and medications that they have to take, and stuff like that. Granted, if we are to be honest, granted, some conditions will require you to make major adjustments to your lifestyle. We cannot dispute that. But to assume that every person who has a disability has a different life is completely wrong. Life with a disability is not abnormal, and it's not different like people think. Um, People with disabilities also have chores like anybody else. House chores. We clean, we cook, we do the laundry, we do the dishes, we iron, we do all sorts of things. We have responsibilities to take care of our families, little kids, whoever needs to be taken care of. We have community responsibilities as well. The people with disabilities have leadership positions within their communities, whether be it a church, whether it's being leaders for many societal organizations. We have responsibilities at work. We go to work, we provide for our families, we do everything else that everybody else does. I know that to some of you, you may actually be like, oh, why is this guy talking about this? Like, isn't this way too obvious? But I promise you, there are a lot of people who think and feel this way. Uh, and that's the reason why these assumptions are actually way more common than you realize. And speaking about the assumption that the lives of people with disabilities are that different, one other thing that a lot of people think is that uh, disabled people are always in pain, chronic pain, and that we are always sick or ill or uncomfortable or something like that. And that could not be any further from the truth. People with disabilities, yes, sometimes certain chronic illnesses may come with some levels of pain and discomfort or sickness. That cannot be avoided. It's a fact. It's a fact. I acknowledge it. And yes, it's a fact. But in most situations and in most circumstances, disabilities are not really painful. You are not always in some kind of chronic pain where you can barely socialize because you just have this unbearable amount of pain. I'm not trying to belittle anyone's pain or discomfort, but I'm just trying to dispute this generalization that if you have a disability, then you are always in constant pain. Um, the truth of the matter is that people with disabilities really are just like people without disability, in the sense that we also fall sick or ill occasionally, just like anyone else. Just like you sometimes catch a cold, I also sometimes catch a cold. I don't always have a cold. Sometimes you get a headache. I also sometimes get a headache, but I don't always have a headache. And normally, my body isn't in any chronic pain either. Yes, there may be levels of discomfort. There may be an uneasiness or maybe slight pain, but usually we have meds to take care of that. So feel free to invite people with disabilities out to enjoy themselves, to have fun, to engage in games and sports, because we are not always in pain like most people would think. By the way, guys, if you are enjoying this stream, please, please, please like the video, guys. Like the video. I can see there are 6 of you here. Please do like the video. and just help with the algorithm. Okay, so let me just look at the comments. Levi says, so funny. I was listening to you. Okay, let me just pin his comments. It becomes easier. Okay, Levi says, so funny. I was listening to your last story of being stranded and didn't know you are actually doing another live. Yes, man. I just thought I would do another live today, and spread some message about disability misconceptions and stuff. So thank you for watching, and another friend of mine, Shame, says, "Hi, bro. Bring it on. Stay home, loud and clear." Thank you, bro. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you, man. Please don't forget to like the video and also to share it on your social platforms. My mom is tuned in as usual. Thank you, mom. Um, Yes, there is another question from Levi. This is very important. It says, how about the emotional pain? How often do you think about your disability? Um, yes. In terms of that's a very important question. In terms of emotional pain, um, I think from the general assumption is that we are always super sad about our disabilities and our conditions. And as much as the media and other people may want people to feed into that narrative, the truth of the matter is, like with anything else in life, you end up adjusting or getting used to your disability or your impairment. I know that I'll probably get a lot of flack for this, but the truth of the matter is, um, most people who have disabilities have already adapted to their way of life. They have done their best to make themselves as comfortable as possible, such that you live a full life, a productive life, an engaged life. It was actually one of the points that I was going to come to later on in the live stream, uh, where we talk, where I was going to talk about how uh, people with disabilities can live full, productive, and successful lives. And the reason why a lot of people might feel like there is a lot of emotional pain that is attached to having a disability is because the assumption is once you have a disability, it really changes your life. Yes, there will be slight changes, but they are really not that great. But what I will acknowledge and appreciate is maybe someone who has become newly disabled. Yes, in that case, it definitely will not be easy. You need to have a time for adjusting to your situation, of learning how to operate and cope and function with your disability or newly found impairment. And for some people, for most people, they will usually just, end up adapting and moving on with their lives so that you are not always so stressed and depressed about it. But research has constantly shown that people who have disabilities tend to suffer from depression more than uh, able bodied people, and that's a fact. It's true, having a disability is not easy, granted. In my personal experience, the only times where I really, really think about my disability is when it is keeping me from something. Like, for example, I may want to attend a certain function that is very important to me, but then I can't access the venue or the place where the function is being held. And I become so frustrated. And that's when I start thinking, like, oh man, if only I didn't have a disability, I was going to be able to go there and support my friend and be there for my friend. Um, and then sometimes, maybe on one or two random occasions where I'm thinking about life, I also think about, like, oh man, maybe if I wasn't disabled, things would be better, especially when things go wrong. Like when something frustrating happens, I think I would assume, because I do, but again, I don't speak for everyone. I would assume that a lot of people with disabilities will feel depressed or stressed when things are going wrong. That's when you're like, oh man, if only things were different. But generally, I think we cope and manage to move on with life a bit more. I hope that was hopeful, but it's a very individual thing, and probably some other people who also have disabilities will have an answer much different to mine. The next assumption that I'll talk about is when people think that people with disabilities are only interested in being with other people with disabilities. Um, it's actually a very funny assumption. It's like assuming that tall people just want to be with other tall people. And by be with, I mean like even company or friendships. But the truth of the matter is that friendships, connections, relationships, they are very personal things. And it shouldn't be relegated to whether you both have a disability or not. Um, okay, I just lost my train of thought there a little bit. Yes, as people with disabilities may share certain characteristics or circumstances or situations, but that shouldn't mean that you necessarily want to also always associate with people who have similar circumstances or situations in life. I For the longest time I didn't even have a single friend who had a disability. All my friends were non-disabled people, and we clicked very well. And I have often found that this is another funny thing. If there is someone who has a disability, another person has a disability within the vicinity, some people will try to push you into talking or having a conversation with them, and you are like, why? And they're like, I know, just talk to her. And I'm like, why should I talk to her? I don't just talk to people randomly. Anyway, why in this special case? In this case, why is this case special rather? And you'll find people say, maybe, you just want to connect and what. And it just goes on to show that a lot of people feel like once you have a disability, you belong in some kind of special forces group where you have to stick to your own kind, and I say that in quotes, like your own kind, but really there is no such thing. Relationships are personal. You are free to interact with whoever you want to interact with, whether you have a disability or not. One other thing that also feeds into that assumption is that people think people with disabilities fit in a one dimensional group. Uh, like thinking that everyone who has a disability has the same interest in life, that we are interested in the same thing, that we share the same opinions about life and about everything. No, people with disabilities are not a one dimensional group. What most people forget is that number one, people with disabilities are people first before anything else. And by virtue of being a person, that means you also have likes and interests that are unique to you and not to everyone else. The same applies with people with disabilities. We have a lot of different opinions about life. We are not one dimensional, and we really shouldn't be grouped as such. People with disabilities reflect the same diversity that society also reflects in terms of culture, in terms of religion, in terms of our belief system, in terms of our family background, educational background. It's a wide spectrum of characteristics that also apply to people with disabilities. So no, we are not one dimensional. We are in fact very, very different. And on that note, that's why I always put a disclaimer on most of my videos to let people know that just because I am one person who also is disabled and I am saying this does not mean that it applies to every other person who also has a disability. I always give a disclaimer and say that I'm speaking from my own personal understanding, and I have never claimed to represent all the people with disabilities. That's just not how it works. Whew, man, this life is yes, going good. Let's continue to the next assumption, and this one is let me see here. It's the one that I, sort of preempted, where most people think and feel that people with disabilities cannot live lives that are productive, that they cannot be successful, or they cannot live full lives, meaningful or purposeful lives. That is a very wrong assumption. People with disabilities are very, very much capable of living meaningful, purposeful lives that can participate in society, in the community, in the, you know, they can participate in life just as much as anybody else. The reason why most people may feel this way probably is because there is a lot of focus and emphasis that is placed on a person's disability or the perceived limitations that they may have instead of focusing on what that individual is able to do. Um, yes, I may be impaired in certain ways. I may have limitations in certain ways, but that doesn't mean that I am a completely useless person if there is ever such a thing. There are things that I'm good at, there are things that I can do. I have my own ways of contributing to society, to the economy, to my environment, to my family, to my friendships, to my connections, to my relationships. Yes. And the earlier that most of us come to that realization, the better it will be for most of us. I think a lot of people just need to, play with Google a little bit more. I promise you, if you Google successful people with disabilities, you will see a whole list of people with very impressive accomplishments. People who have gone on to excel in different fields, uh, even as disabled, as people with disabilities. I People with disabilities can, get into any career as well. I know. I even recently, actually, recently I saw um well, a few years ago, I was watching a series and they had a medical doctor who was in a wheelchair, and I was like, "Whoa! I have never seen this." It was very fascinating to me, and I am someone who grew up thinking that my career options were limited because of my disability. I remember when we had, one of those career guidance sessions. There was a lady who came in and she was demonstrating something about is it radiation or something like that? And I kind of like had an interest in it. So I asked her and said, do you think I could possibly do this with my condition? And the answer was like, absolutely not. Like, no, you need to think about other career options. But I think a better approach would have been to understand what kind of function that I have, what my disability allows me to do, what I'm capable of. It's such an extensive conversation to have, and it's not something that should just be taken at face value to say that just because someone has a disability, they can't do certain things. So, yes, people with disabilities can lead very full and productive and successful lives. Google um, Google some of them, and you will read some amazing stories that will definitely make you change your point of view. Speaking on that as well, there is also another assumption that people with disabilities can only do basic unskilled jobs. No, people with disabilities, because they are people, also come with a wide range of skills, talents, and abilities in the workplace. You really should never make an assumption that we can only do certain kind of jobs, and we are usually just allowed or sort of offered menial jobs. People think, maybe we can't really put this person in the office because they have a disability. Maybe they will not be able to, think or deliver what they are supposed to deliver as an employee. But no, that kind of perception is absolutely not the right perception to have when it comes to disability perceptions. Hmm. People with disabilities can work in all sorts of environments and jobs, and we can do trade jobs, we can do tertiary kind of qualifications and jobs. It's really a wide variety. It's never it's never an assumption that should be made. So people with disabilities really can do any job that they have trained for, that they are qualified for. And if you are a prospective employer, please do employ people with disabilities as long as they are qualified for that job that they would have applied for. I don't honestly see any problem with it. There are a lot of other assumptions about people with disabilities that we could have also gone into, but I don't want this live stream to drag on for forever. So if there is anything else you think I may have missed out on, um, please let me know. If you have a question, now would be a good time to ask your question so that I can try to respond to it before I leave this live stream. Wow, guys, just a shout out to everyone who is tuning in. Thank you to Oti, Tawuya. I see you. I appreciate you tuning in. My friend Levi, my mom, my friend Shame, Trust. I see Melody. I see someone else. Some of you were here before. Thank you for watching. And to those who are watching this as a past live stream, I also appreciate you. Thank you for taking time to hang out with me and to be a part of this live stream. And just before I go, if you are watching this and you are not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I really would appreciate your subscription. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also turn on the notifications so that you will never miss any future uploads. I don't see anyone coming through with any questions. Hopefully I was able to send through something across, to send a message across. And I hope that I've helped someone, maybe with an assumption that they had about people with disabilities. If somebody has learned even something from this live stream, then I would have done something meaningful today. So, guys, thank you for joining me once again. I appreciate you. Please continue staying safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. Take care of your families. Um, and happy holidays. Happy festive season. I hope that you are enjoying yourselves wherever you are. And as usual, do remember that your life is a gift. Please make it count always. Till next time, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.